Good morning. How are you guys today? Let's hear it. Let's get some energy in the room today. We got some really, we've got some really exciting stuff today. I have been waiting to give this presentation for 3 years. I've seen a lot of you, and you guys have gone on the journey with me as we've made sync better and better, started syncing OneDrive, syncing team sites. We have some new things today that we're going to show you. I couldn't be more excited to be here today and get to show you this stuff. You can ask my team. I'm a little bit manic about how excited I'm about the demo I get to do, because it's just like, it's exactly what people want. It's exactly what people have talked about. You might have seen the Azure Autopilot demonstration where they just open a PC and it just logs in and everything happens. It's amazing. We're just on the cusp of making deployment for all of our software super easy, and now we're the OneDrive piece of that, and we're going to help drive that digital transformation as we get all of your users onto the cloud where they can't fall off the cloud, right? So that's the big thing. They're using the cloud, and they don't even have to know about it. And so as they get the concept of the cloud, they'll get better and better and use it more and more and have that aha moment when they realize the power of having all your stuff in OneDrive and SharePoint. So we did files on demand, but we did some other things that I want to hear some noise for some of the things that we did, because we fixed pound and percent. We fixed max path. And of course, we brought sharing back to File Explorer and Mac Finder. Yeah, that's like, these are the big deals. The team did a lot of stuff, or a lot of other stuff around perf. We moved all of the policy stuff so that it's now GPO compliant. Pat will talk about that in a little bit. I don't think I said my name. I'm Tony East. I think everybody, you all know me, so it's fine. You probably talked to me at the booth. I'm the sync guy. Anyway, we've done a bunch of things. We shipped the standalone Mac client. We've done some things with the GoSov support for some of you on some of our other clouds. We support multi-geo, so your user can move to a different geo and sync just follows it without the user having to do anything else. And of course, Files on Demand is coming. IRM sync is coming. That's the other thing that people have asked for, is to be able to sync their IRM libraries from SharePoint. That's another big one that Pat will show you. And of course, auto account config. Super cool stuff. As I said, we brought sharing back to the Finder menu, so you can now have that same sharing experience. It's the same across the web, the Office apps, and now just right there in Finder. We've added screenshot capture, so you can redirect your screenshots right into OneDrive. And of course, we've given you deployment controls so that you can use tools like Casper and other Mac-specific deployment tools. And of course, OneDrive isn't complete without Office, and so we are working on the same Office integration that we have on the PC, where when you open a file that's already synced to your Mac, you end up in a co-authoring session or co-authoring capable session. And so we are working with the Office team to bring that sync integration right to the Office apps on Mac, and we'll actually start being included in the Office SKU. So when you deploy Office, you'll get OneDrive as part of it, and we'll be working on making sure those sign in together and doing all those things. And then lastly, we're going to bring conditional access so you can control who syncs on what device and make sure the devices, the ones that you want to be syncing on, and we'll bring that to Mac. So we'll have conditional access across all of the sync endpoints, Windows and Mac, and we'll support all that. So with sync, there's always an elephant in the room, right? Like, there's one question, one thing that like everyone wants to know, and this year's elephant, I think, is what about on-prem? I need to know about on-prem. So we are bringing the great OneDrive sync to SharePoint. It's coming with SharePoint 2019. We will have transitional support so that if you are a Groove user, the old OneDrive for Business client, we will help you migrate to the new sync seamlessly as you upgrade your servers to SharePoint 2019. And of course, hybrid environments will be supported. So if you're syncing OneDrive from OneDrive for Business with Office 365, and running a SharePoint deployment on-prem, we'll be able to sync that no problem. The reason that we have to do this in SharePoint 2019 and not port it backwards is it requires all of the service components we had to build to make the new sync engine run against the service. And so we actually have to take those components and get them into the server, and it doesn't backport very well. And so we'll have more later this year. This isn't about that right now. I just want to get that out because I know that a bunch of people wanted that question answered, so I just wanted to hit it straight up. So here's where it gets good. This is what I'm excited about. We're going to switch over to this machine here. And we're up. So what I have here is a machine. Think of it as a brand new machine for your user. In this case, I have done an Azure domain join. And so as you can see, so I'm signing into this account with my Jason M at contosodemo.microsoft, that's on Microsoft account. My administrator has used the group policy tool to do a couple of settings. Most importantly, to silently configure OneDrive using the primary Windows account. Yes, thank you. This is amazing, right? So what this means is when OneDrive is run after this policy deploys, it will use the account from the machine, talk to our service, find the OneDrive location, and sync it all down. The other thing my administrator did for me, which is amazing, is he redirected all of my main folders that I use, documents, desktop, pictures, and he put them in the place where OneDrive will be syncing. So in my OneDrive Contoso folder. So this is what I'm talking about when I said you want to get your users on the cloud and not let them fall off the cloud. This way, it keeps them right there. And everything I do, if I drop it on the desktop, it syncs. If I just use documents folder all the time, it syncs. All my pictures sync. So let's just see what happens. I'm going to simulate you guys deploying the OneDrive command by saying OneDrive, and we're going to run it. You guys are just a little theater, a little Hollywood magic. So the key thing is watch down here in the lower right-hand corner of the screen. There it starts. We're looking for an account. It's the gray cloud. And then we find an account, and we start to sign in. Are you kidding me? Are you kidding? Never mind. Don't pay attention to the man behind the curtain. Let me check one thing. Reset. I seriously practiced this 1,000 times. All right, really quick. So once, I'll show you something that I wasn't going to show. So once you've done this configuration, it sets a bit that tells OneDrive that OneDrive has been, that the configuration has been completed. So I'm going to just set that back to it hasn't been completed, because it really hasn't. And I'm going to go to one other place. I have a backup. Just do one more. Okay. Let's try that again. So, when I run OneDrive, there we go. OneDrive runs. It finds your account. It signs in. Oh, and wait. Let's look at your documents folder and your desktop and look at all of the files stream in. glad the backup worked, because it's amazing. OK, so a couple things to note here. Note how all of the files that were on my desktop are back on my desktop, and they have thumbnails. So this is a pretty amazing thing. We have a microservice that runs and composes the thumbnails for 73 different file types. And we'll add those into the thumbs database in the file system. So these are actual thumbnails of things, and you can watch the thumbnails, how fast they are when I show the view of the large icons. Look at how fast they come down, and those are being generated in real time and then cached on the machine. So the first time you see it, we're building them and downloading them. Next time you see it, they're here. And of course, it's, all of the files will, when you double click them, when you run them, we just hydrate them and go. So super, super easy. So some of you guys might think that this is like, a trick of the shell, and that it's not really, really doing a thing, or that we're doing something funny. So I'm going to do a couple things here to show you how deeply we're embedded in the file system. So when we're doing this files on demand sync, we're actually taking all the metadata for your files and folders, and we're putting it into the NTFS file table. So we worked closely with the core file system team and the shell team to make sure that files on demand is really, really, really well integrated. For instance, you know that this takes very, very little space on disk. So if we look at, let's just look at on my desktop, if I look at the properties here, it's 106 megs in the cloud, but it's 0 bytes on disk. And we say 0 bytes on disk, we mean 0 bytes on disk. We're not putting little stub files there that are going to eventually fill up your drive. It's literally 0 bytes. And it's so integrated that we had to work with the teams that build commands like dir and attrib. So check this out. The directory command now, I can look and I can see the files on demand, the files that are in the cloud. And we put little parentheses around to show that they're not really there, but that's how big they are if they came down. So you can actually look in the system and see the files that are actually on the machine and how big they would be if they were downloaded. There's also a couple new file attributes. So if we look at attrib, there's a couple new ones called pinned and unpinned. We needed 3 states in the cloud, cached because of a file open, and then pinned, like I want to keep this offline. And so we use these two attributes in concert with each other to achieve that. But the really cool thing is you can actually just do the attrib command on a file and watch it change state. So let's do an attrib, and we'll pin it. All of this stuff is documented. Pat's going to go into more details about how these things work together. But let's just pick one of these files. We're going to pick 187, this JPEG on the right. Now watch the cloud on the upper left as we go out, hydrate it, and pin it using the command line. So that means that with PowerShell, you can script all of this stuff. If you want to take stuff off a user's machine, you can go and remove the attribute and have it just dehydrate back into the cloud. And so this is just showing you how deeply baked this is into the system. So that's files on demand with automatic account configuration, even though it took twice. And I think it's an incredibly, incredibly powerful a story for deploying OneDrive. So with that, I'm going to bring my associate Patricia Hendricks back up onto the stage and introduce her. She's a program manager that works on Sync. She did a lot of the team site work and led that. And she's going to, I got to show you the fun part. She's going to tell you kind of how it really works. So thanks, Pat. Everybody, big hand.
Awesome. All right, can folks hear me? I ripped my mic off as I was standing up, and I was like, oh, what a great way to start. So thanks, everyone. And let's give Tony a big round of applause. That's really, really amazing stuff here. So I'm really excited to be talking to you about what tools and technologies are actually going to be powering this new deployment in a files-on-demand world. So Tony talked about and went through the user experience. Now I want to take a step back and talk about the tools that you'll be using as part of this deployment and how you want to be thinking about framing your deployment. So let's start back from the beginning. Some of you guys may have seen this before. It's our deployment cheat sheet. It goes through some of the main steps of planning your deployment in your organization. So going back, just starting with planning, both on a macro and a micro level, how much content is being generated across your organization, and how much content is being generated by individual users today. You want to think about that collective as a whole as you move into sync, because you want to be thoughtful about how that content is going to be moving to and from devices in the cloud. Next up is data migration. So a lot of you out there are already engaging with our teams like Fast Track to migrate your content from local network shares, from competitors like Dropbox and Box, to the cloud. And so this is where we'll spend the majority of our time, is around prep and deployment. So before OneDrive is even deployed on your Macs and PCs, you want to make sure that your desktops, your PCs, your Macs are actually set up to accommodate sync at the time of deployment. And so you're going to be thoughtful about what kind of data protection policies do I have in place? What kind of conditional access policies do I need to configure? You're going to be applying OneDrive group policies to the machine. You're going to be redirecting, just like Tony showed, your Windows desktop, photos, documents folders into a pre-created OneDrive folder so users can have that magic of the cloud and stay in the cloud. If you haven't already, enable SharePoint site sync for your organization. This is something we're already starting with small, medium businesses by default, so go back and do this today. And only as your last step will you finally deploy the bits onto the box. And so this next step is where things get really, really interesting. And so with the power of automatic account configuration, as well as files on demand, together you can enable a truly silent and seamless setup for your users. And this is the key to getting your users in the cloud, staying in the cloud, and really using the power of OneDrive to the fullest. And last, you'll move into operational mode. For those of you who have Groove on the machines, maybe you don't need it anymore if you're not using on-premise sync. So you'll be wanting to think about how you remove it from this point on. So let's just recap. A lot of you have seen this information before, but it's always good to reiterate. OneDrive setup.exe is installed for every user on all Win 10 devices. And so if you're deploying Windows 10 to your organization, you don't even have to think about deploying the bits on the box. They're already there. OneDrive setup.exe is also included on all Office 2016 builds. If you're deploying to platforms like Windows 7, 8, and 8.1, we've created a custom SCCM template for you to just import and deploy, which will take care of the user-configured deployments as well. And so you can leverage that as a tool to make sure every user has OneDrive on startup. So let's go back to this moment of you and this concept of you as the admin. You control that magic moment of attach. You get to decide when a user experiences the cloud. And so OneDrive GPOs will automatically configure OneDrive Sync. And just like Tony showed you, these are policies that are deployable through tools like group policy. You can use GP Edit to edit these. And at the end of the day, too, for those of you not on these technologies, you can always just deploy these as registry keys. With silent account configuration, we support all Win 10 devices that are signed in with some organizational account. We will just pick up that credential on first launch and sign the user in silently. For Windows 7, 8, and also 8.1 and 10, for any domain joined credentials, we can use those as well. So when these policies are set to enable, just like Tony showed, OneDrive will automatically sign in the user on next launch. And so the key to remember here is that this is your choice on when you want to plan that moment. And so we will do it only when the policy is enabled. And so you control the moment of attach. And as Tony showed, that this is a truly UI-less experience for the users. All they have to do is sign into their machines. They'll see their files. They'll see their documents that they're already on their desktop redirected into OneDrive without them having to do anything. So in Classic Sync, you really get to decide which users go through selective sync. So inadvertently, I sabotaged Tony's demo by accidentally setting this policy, which is what happened. And so thank you, Tony, for demoing how you can control whether a user is asked to choose the folders they explicitly want to sync. So obviously, and I'll talk more about this in a files on demand world, this is going to be less and less relevant. But for those of you who are still on Windows 7 and Windows 8, this is going to be a really important choice for you. You get to decide what users are seamlessly configured and what users have too much content such that you would feel more comfortable with them explicitly choosing the folders they want before we start any downloads. You get to make that choice. And then you can preview this today. You can go home, you can set these policies for your own organization and then test them out today. So we encourage all of you to go home and try this out right now. So on the topic of how our policies work, we've gotten a lot of feedback from you guys and learned a ton from all of you about how to make these policies actually enterprise compliant and scalable to an actual enterprise deployment. So we're really excited to announce some changes in how we're structuring our ADM templates. So all of our settings now live under Software Microsoft policies. And the value of this is that you as administrators can be the only ones, the sole responsible ones for being able to set these policies. They can't be changed by a user. We're also really excited to announce that our ADM packages are now just included by default in OneDrive setup.exe. So if you go into the install location of OneDrive, you'll find a new ADM folder which has both the ADML and ADMX files. And the value of this is that you will always know that you have the most up-to-date ADM packages for your current version. And lastly, too, is we now localize our ADML files. We've gotten a lot of feedback from our international customers of just how important this is, and we are localizing this new content as well. So one of the coolest things that we've done here in the biggest areas of learning is how we can actually templatize these ADM packages. It's really hard to see on the screen here, but for those of you who've deployed things like the default folder directory controls, you'll know that you actually had to go into the XML and manually add your tenant GUID to set any tenant-specific settings. So we've actually restructured this in such a way that you don't have to do that anymore. All you have to do is just go to tools like gpedit, and then you can create lists of tenants and associated values with those policies. So we're really excited to make this change. And these are available today for you to start using. And then what's coming up next is that we're really excited that for those of you who use Intune for your mobile device management, we'll be pushing these policies to Intune to make sure that you have the same richness of policies in your OneDrive deployments via Intune. Now, for any of you who've already deployed using our legacy structures, that's totally fine. We will continue supporting these legacy locations. However, moving forward, we very much recommend that you use the new enterprise compliant locations and deploy under policy. But that is up to you. We will respect both locations. So let's go back and talk about how you can use files on demand as a tool to enable a faster, more seamless deployment. And so typically when back in step one, all the way back to the beginning, when you're planning, you're thinking about how much content is being generated across your organization. And this is a really important exercise to go through because without files on demand, you are very likely coming up with a pretty stringent equation to calculate how much required network load a deployment of OneDrive is going to require for your organization. So you're going to be thinking about variables like, what are the size of my users' OneDrives? What are the number of SharePoint sites? What are the number of users? And multiplying those all together would give you a sense of the required network load that's needed for an entire deployment. And without files on demand, your OneDrive rollout is really dependent on your infrastructure capacity. Depending on your required network load, your infrastructure capacity is going to be the bottleneck for a deployment. And so what we typically see are smaller scale deployments to smaller sets of users, and it really delays the deployment of OneDrive just based on this infrastructure capacity bottleneck. And lastly, too, is the size of a user's OneDrive can really complicate account setup. In many cases, especially with users with small form factor devices, that user has to choose the folders that are most important to them to even get content to sync onto their small form factor PC. So what we're really excited about with Files on Demand is that use this as a tool to streamline your deployments with a couple of key values. Your namespace is quickly viewable from File Explorer without the need for any type of file download. So just like Tony mentioned, your entire OneDrive SharePoint sites were completely browsable, but actually truly took up 0 space on the PC. You can also have rapid deployments with minimal impact. And so rather than your infrastructure capacity being a bottleneck, Files on Demand and its minimal network load will actually allow you to scale both the number and quantities of these deployments that can actually happen in parallel. And so you can have much more of a rapid deployment with minimal network impact. And lastly, it really allows OneDrive to scale to both large and small form factor devices. No longer does the user have to choose the folders that are most important to them. They can actually have everything available and then access things on demand. So a lot of you guys might have seen this, because we actually talked about this last year, is that in a typical deployment, what a lot of organizations will see is a pretty large spike in their network usage during this initial sync period. And the reason for this spike is because this is typically when a lot of content is downloading from the cloud or uploading from the PC back up to the cloud. And you see that pretty large spike in the beginning, and then it levels off and then grows organically over time. The really cool thing about Files on Demand is that you avoid this really large spike in the beginning. Because of the minimal network load, we actually just see we jump right into that straight line linear organic growth. And so that's really cool. And this will just help enable your rapid deployments and minimal network impact. And so lastly, one of the things that Tony mentioned and inadvertently demoed for us was how you can control Files on Demand in your ecosystem. And so Files on Demand is configurable through group policy. So just like Tony demoed, if you go into a GP edit, if you use any of our ADM packages, you actually have all of these policies available for you for deployment. You can deploy them via tools like GPO, or also you can be deploying explicit registry keys for any other systems. So the controls that we offer are the ability to turn Files on Demand on or off at any time in your organization. You can default folders to online only. And then you can also migrate existing SharePoint sites to online only. And so with these policies, you as the admin are very much in control over what content is downloaded to the PC. In addition, as Tony mentioned, you can use PowerShell or the command line to set individual file attributes. You can take individual files online or offline. You can pin the files and folders that are most important to your organization so your users always have them available. And the great part about this is that you can script this as part of a PowerShell script and then deploy that to your organization to make sure users always have the same set of content. And even without these controls, OneDrive is very thoughtful about our network impact. And so we have smart defaults in place to help with that consideration. So OneDrives larger than 5 gigabytes will automatically default to online only. And then all SharePoint sites default to online only as well. And so this will take a huge burden off of your network impact. And so even in a Files on Demand world, we want to make sure that we're good citizens for the rest of our supported platforms, so both Windows 7, 8, 8.1, and Mac as well. So we want to continue investing in being smart and respectful of your networks. And so accounting for networks even without Files on Demand, we have a couple of recommendations here. And so the first one is that, especially for Windows, we very much optimize for optimize your traffic to fit your organization's need. And so our recommendation here is leverage cross routing. So, prioritizing traffic at the router level to prioritize appropriately synced traffic against other ongoing traffic. This, hands down, is the best way to prioritize how OneDrive traffic is in relationship to other tasks in your organization. We do have a set of throttles that we offer and set of controls. Our recommendation here is that you only use explicit throttles when the very strict traffic restriction is absolutely necessary. So these are situations like you are doing an initial deployment in a smaller office with a smaller network load, things like that, and use them for temporary periods of time. Remove them after that initial sync. And the controls that we offer here are we have an existing throttle based off of a percentage of your upload bandwidth, but we've heard a lot of feedback that we want to simplify how we use these controls. So we're really excited to announce that we have 2 new policies that are available today, which allow you to set an explicit upload and download throughput used by OneDrive.exe. So not only can you control uploads, you can also include downloads as well, and that's based off your feedback back to us. Oh yeah, awesome. So Tony mentioned earlier that one of the things we're super excited to be introducing to you is Sync for IRM libraries. And we're really excited to announce that you can start previewing on Windows today, and will be GA by end of year. Coming up next, we'll have IRM Sync for Files on Demand and IRM Sync for Mac as well. But I think this calls for a demo. Alrighty. So I'm here on my Windows PC. And in my Contoso tenant, I sync this folder called Legal Documents. And so you can see here, I have my OneDrive for Business configured. I have some SharePoint sites as well. But in this legal site, I have a library called Sensitive Documents. And in this library, it's really important to me, and it's really important for the organization to lock down this sensitive content. And so if you go under the site settings here, so I've just gone into settings, rights management, you'll actually see that an information rights management or IRM policy is already in place on the machine. So today, if you were to try to sync this library, OneDrive would give you an error message and say, sorry, we don't yet support this. So I'm going to actually show you how we let you sync this content. And so to help me sync this content as part of the preview, one of the things that I've already done is I've downloaded and installed this rights management service client to help me sync this IRM'd content. And I already have that installed and running on my PC. So I'm going to go back to this legal site, and I'm going to hit sync, hit yes. This is good. I want to go ahead and start syncing everything. And there you go. You'll see that legal sensitive documents is downloading to my PC, even though it's IRM'd. So now let's actually open one of these up, and let's actually verify that this is IRM'd. So I open this one. It'll think about it. Oh, there we go. If you caught it, just very briefly, it said configuring rights management. And there you go. You'll see that this content is restricted access, but here it is syncing down to my PC. So let's actually, oh, thank you, yes. So that's step one, downloading it. So step two, let's see if the change will actually sync back to the service. So let's write, hi, everyone. Save that and close it. Let's go back to the website here and see if that change synced back up. Oh, hey, there we go. It looks like Denver legislative codes have just been modified. Open that Word Online. There's my change. And you see that that change was uploaded back up to the service. So what's really cool about this, too, is that not only do we support syncing of existing IRM'd libraries, we'll also support transitions to and from IRM'd and non-IRM'd states. And so if I was syncing a library that was non-IRM'd and an admin came and changed those policies, that's totally fine. We will seamlessly transition to syncing the IRM'd library and vice versa. It's completely transparent to the user. They won't even notice. All right. Great, and so that was syncing IRM'd content. So we're really excited that this is available for public preview today. We want everyone to go back and try it, and we'll be GA by end of year. So let's do a quick recap of Mac. So just a reminder, again, a lot of you have seen this content already, but it's just worth going over again. We currently offer the Mac standalone package, which is deployable via tools like Casper. And we offer things like automatic updates to ensure you always have the most up-to-date fixes and features on your Mac clients. And what a standalone client allows us to do is it allows OneDrive to automatically enable rich experiences that the Mac App Store would otherwise block. So things like just being able to open at login is a setting that's blocked by the store. We can do that in the standalone package. Being able to automatically enable overlays in Finder, we can do that in the standalone package. So we absolutely recommend you deploy the standalone package via tools like Casper to your organization to automatically enable those rich experiences. What we're really excited to announce, and again, this is based off feedback for you guys, is to make sure that all of our OneDrive settings and policies are locked down via MDM. And so what this means now is that we've made a change in how we actually write these settings such that OneDrive managed preferences can only be written to by the MDM solution. And the result of this is that only the MDM preferences are returned to OneDrive, and this locks down the application behavior. So just as a reference, some of our common plist locations, they're going to be slightly different across the standalone Mac App Store and the managed client. And so for those of you who are already familiar with deploying on Mac, this will look pretty familiar to you. So we've talked a lot about the conversations that we've already had with all of you and the feedback that we've heard. And so I wanted to take a step to talk about some of the conversations we're still having. And you know what? Let's just keep having this conversation and talk about what we have coming up next. So a very common theme that we hear with customers is, how do I stay in control of OneDrive updates? This is hands down one of the top conversation topics we have with you guys as you're planning your deployments. And so a little background here is that these automatic updates are the key to delivering quality service. Automatic updates allow the sync client to be an extension of the OneDrive service, such that you always have the most up-to-date fixes and the up-to-date features on your client. So it's a very important tool when it comes to delivering quality of service. So we have a few recommendations when it comes to controlling these auto updates. The first thing we recommend always is follow along with our releases. Stay informed and stay ahead of the releases so you know what's coming in your organization. We'll just continue getting better at this by making sure that this has more information about what clients are currently rolling out versus at 100%. And so this is our first step in taking that transparency and bringing it back to you guys. For those of you who don't do it already, you can leverage enterprise updates to give your organization a little bit more time to prep your organizations to test the newest client and even proactively deploy it ahead of enterprise updates. Use this ring. It's another group policy that you can deploy to your organizations. You can use this as a tool to stay ahead of those updates. So some feedback that we've heard is, can we align with Office and Windows on a twice-yearly enterprise update? Our enterprise updates today are 60 days, and we've heard feedback that a little bit more time might be better. So that's a great conversation that we are going to continue having to have a consistent story. And second is, how do we scale updates to multiple users on a single machine? We've heard a lot of feedback that, hey, it's actually a considerable network load to download and install updates for a single device that has multiple users. This is a conversation that we think is super important and want to keep getting better, is how can we actually have smarter updates for the multi-user scenario on a PC? So we'll continue having this conversation. The second biggest theme we hear is, how do I get rid of Groove on my machine? We have a lot of you guys out there who've already transitioned off of Groove and onto OneDrive, which is great. And so the common question we get is, what do I do with this Groove client that's still sitting around on my PC? So the reason why it's still there is Groove is still the solution for syncing on-premises SharePoint content. But as Tony mentioned, this is the next big item that we're going to be tackling. And so this won't be relevant for long, but it's still relevant today. So the first thing all of you guys should go do is enable SharePoint Site Sync for OneDrive on the SharePoint admin portal. There's no reason why you don't need to do this today. More and more, we're automatically enabling this. We've already started doing this for our small, medium businesses. So if you're a large enterprise customer, go home and enable this for your organizations today. Start using OneDrive to sync SharePoint site content. And if you don't need Groove, just remove it from your Office Pro Plus install. Absolutely. If Groove is no longer relevant because you don't have on-premises sync in your organization, just remove it. Moving forward, though, we will be doing more to proactively clean up Groove on your machine. And there are a couple things coming that will help with this. So just by default, Groove will no longer be installed on the next version of Office. We're actually removing it because it won't be relevant from that point onwards. And second is, we are actually doing a lot of really interesting work with the Office install team to have smarts around detecting whether Groove is even in use on an existing install. And what OneDrive can actually detect is whether there are things like libraries that are syncing or whether there's been active usage recently with Groove. And OneDrive will actually tell Office, oh, on upgrade, remove Groove. And so Office itself will do cleanup work on next upgrades. And that's really exciting. And so for any organizations out there who just say, like, actually, no, we still need Groove for certain purposes, keep in mind, too, that this can still be configured such that, hey, no, keep Groove on updates, and Office will respect that. But this is our commitment to cleaning up Groove and getting it off of your machines moving forward. And so I've told you a little bit about what powers these technologies. I'm really excited to welcome Tony back onto the stage to talk about the digital transformation.
Thanks, Pat.
Yeah.
Thanks very much. So all you are here, so I know you know how important OneDrive is, how important a component OneDrive is to your digital transformation. If you think about the era of the cloud, the original motion for probably for most of you was getting your users' mailboxes onto the cloud, right? It was all getting to Exchange, being able to use it, because it was the most obvious place where people wanted to get to stuff from everywhere in their mobile devices. Everyone's quickly learning that having your files in OneDrive and SharePoint in Office 365 is as important to productivity and creativity as the inbox. So, we run a consumer service and we run the commercial service, and on the consumer side, we have to drive engagement because, part of what we're doing is making sure that we have a product that people use. And so we do a lot of interesting metrics and telemetry and usage monitoring on the consumer side. And so we learn a lot with what I call the conjoined triangles of success. Perhaps you've heard of them. Nobody watches Silicon Valley? Sorry. All right, so what we see is you think about the funnel of users, right? At the very top, they might be cloud enabled, and then they start to get more active, and you get fewer of them down, but their satisfaction, their creativity, their productivity all goes up. So our job is to take them from being enabled and using the cloud and driving them down into where they're actually collaborating, editing, contributing, co-authoring, and they sort of begin to have this moment. So this is what we want to do, is sort of get that user distribution down the stack and get them as creative and productive as possible. And we talked about the magic moment. So what we learned in the consumer side was if we can get a user to come back and use OneDrive one time, come back and for a second day in the first week, our retention goes from 18% up to 45%. If we can get them to do a simple scenario, like upload a document, it goes up to 60%. If we can get them to use any two endpoints, the web, the mobile client, if we get them on two endpoints, all of a sudden that retention number goes up to 80%, and that engagement starts to go up and up. And of course, I'm the sync guy, and so it turns out if you have them using sync and mobile, our retention goes up to over 90%. So that's a pretty powerful statement to say, hey, listen, if you get sync deployed and you offer the mobile application, which is of course manageable by mobile app management, or so you can control the policies on the mobile app to make sure that the data stays secure. But if you can get them on those two endpoints, they just have this aha moment. I like to tell the story about my wife, who's heavily involved in the PTA. And we were out somewhere to dinner, and she got some urgent PTA text, because PTA is really urgent sometimes, usually late at night. And so we're sitting at dinner, and she's like, oh, they need this document. And I had set up her OneDrive, like I just told you guys how to do it with all her documents and desktop, and she's like, it's back on my machine. And you'd think the guy that does OneDrive sync that she would know what I do and how the cloud works, but she really didn't. And so I said, well, she says, it's on the computer at home. I said, well, no, it's actually OneDrive. She's like, really? And I said, yeah. So we got out her phone and I showed her the OneDrive app, which she'd already had installed, but she'd never run. And she's like, these are all my files. And I'm like, yeah. And so she went and she was able to find the document because it's just her stuff. And her eyes are just like, she says, this is what you do? And I'm like, yeah, this is what I do. Yeah, you guys, you know what I'm talking about. And so she, I showed her how to share get a link. She put it back in the text. And I don't know if you guys have seen the cool text preview, but the other person on the other end got this, and then it was wow, thanks, is the text back. And I said, now we can go back to dinner, and you don't have to worry about it when we get home. And so it's that, like, but after, at her next meeting, everyone's like, how did you do that? I thought you were out at dinner. How did you do that? And so she showed him. And so, like, it's this, like, step function aha moment. And the first step is getting sync deployed and getting all of the stuff, into the cloud, and sort of, staying on the cloud, not falling off the cloud. So we've talked about it a lot, but sometimes it's best to hear from a customer like one of you, so somebody from the world out here. And so I'd like to invite up on stage Bill Hall. He is the Director of Service Desk Operations for Rackspace. And we're going to talk a little about his deployment, his experience. And then he'll stay up here afterwards. If any of you guys have questions for any of us, we'll do that after that. Hey, Bill. Hi. Big hand. Thanks for coming. You gonna just have a seat? So, Bill, maybe you could tell us about your journey to the cloud.
Sure thing. So, at Rackspace, we actually had a little bit of a kind of a distributed setup to where we had multiple tools that different departments were using. We had one primary tool that we were using for online collaboration, online document sharing, so cloud competitor of your guys. And
we call it not OneDrive.
Yeah, not OneDrive. And it was costing us a good deal of money. And what we were seeing from our user base is that they kept talking to us going, we have too many different tools, we don't know where to go to where to collaborate, and we were looking to find one solution that we could standardize across the entire company. So taking a look at everything that we had, we're a Microsoft company, all of our users are very heavy Office users. It just made natural sense for us to look at OneDrive, and with all the advancements that you guys have been making, you talked about the 3 years ago.
I remember you've been to some of my sessions.
Yeah, it's significantly better, and it was. We were looking at the use cases and what we needed to do, and said, you know what, this actually makes sense. So looking at the business case, we go, wow, we can save over $400,000 a year by making this move. We just have to figure out how we're actually going to get from our other provider over into OneDrive. So talked with our account management team, and they brought to us the Fast Track service that you guys have. And Fast Track actually enabled us to really make this a pretty seamless process. So one of the cool things that happened is Fast Track went in there and they did an analysis of the other cloud provider. Showed us exactly all the data that we had on there, how much data, who was sharing with who, which was huge. It also did analysis to say, you know what, if we do a migration of all this data, every cloud provider is different. They have different features and functionalities. These are the files that will not migrate over. These are the files that you're going to need to remediate in some shape or form. And these are sharing and collaborations that you may have external to your company that are not going to be there and in place when we do the migration. So instead of us getting migrated over and finding out kind of the gotchas right then and there, we knew exactly what was going to be going on and what was going to happen. So from there, we were able to go through and actually start planning out and say, you know what, who are the users that collaborate together the most? These are the people that we need to move together so that when we actually migrate somebody from the old service into the new service, it's not like there's confusion going, hey, do I use the old service? Do I use OneDrive now? Where do I go? When we move them, it was one day you're on this one, next day you're on OneDrive, working within OneDrive.
So that's actually a good segue to the next question. Is one of the things that was really exciting about watching Rackspace do this migration was just how fast you guys were able to iterate. Yep. Can you actually talk about a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we ended up doing 28 terabytes of data in 5 weeks. And it was challenging. And a lot of that had to do with kind of the planning that we did. So we said, you know what, how fast can the service move? We got metrics from Fast Track saying this is how many users that you can move on any one date. This is how much data that you can move. We actually went through and did the planning on our own to say, you know, okay, we're gonna take the data that we got from Fast Track. We're gonna put our groups together. These are the largest groups that we can get because of the data restrictions, file restrictions, and then just started cranking away. Users we'd email out to the users a week in advance telling them, hey, you're going next week. This is going to be your migration time frame. We'd remind them again the day before. Day of, we'd start migrating them. Next day, we would say, you're done. If there were any challenges or any problems that happened with the data transfer, because nothing is ever perfect, especially when you're transferring large amounts of data, we tell the user exactly saying, hey, this file didn't migrate over, and here's exactly why. As part of that, we also took the old service and we marked it as read-only. So the user still had access to the data if they needed to go back and get something in case there was any sort of issue. But they didn't have the ability to continue to populate old data so that we didn't have to go back and do run after run.
Accidentally edit the wrong thing in the wrong place. It pushes you to the new place.
Exactly.
So it sounds like communication ahead of time, upfront, transparency about the process were really important, but also giving the user continued access to old content, even though they couldn't make edits to it.
Absolutely. Other thing that we did is we talked to the teams that were the heaviest users in advance to say, well, what are you doing? What are your standard use cases? And then as part of that, we went through, and Fast Track already has a ton of training documentation that's available. We went through and said, okay, these are the use cases that you're doing in the old environment. How do you do that in OneDrive? So instead of we thought about it and said, you know what, we can try and do a white glove service where we go around to every single team and do in-person training. That's expensive, and it's very, very time consuming. So we actually used Stream to take videos that we had. Some of them we mimicked what was that you had from a Microsoft perspective. We created things that were specific to our use cases, created our own training documentation, put it up on Stream, and then the communication documents we referenced over to the users. So it was, most of the things people needed to do, it was just intuitive. But if they needed something, it was just a click away saying, oh, here's a 2-minute video. Oh, that's how I do that. And they were up and running real quickly.
That's great. That's awesome.
Other thing that we saw, I said we migrated 28 terabytes of data. Shortly after the migration, it dropped down to about 26 terabytes as people went through and cleaned up old stuff.
That's super interesting.
Yeah, and it's picked back up. We're now over 31 terabytes.
Of organic growth as people have used the service.
Yeah, and what we're seeing is that because it's so integrated with the Office suite, people are now starting to naturally save documents into OneDrive, and they're seeing more of the simple collaboration within the tools, and because it's working cross-platform within the native applications, it's just easier.
So you're just seeing better engagement, is what you're saying. Yes. So the users are starting to discover the power of Office and OneDrive together and starting to be engaged. Have you heard any other feedback?
People have just liked it. I mean, it's simple, it's easy. What we're seeing is that teams are spinning up on it. We've recently done a couple of acquisitions. We're running all of the work and the programs and projects out of either groups or out of OneDrive, depending on the teams that are using it. And it's fantastic both for internal collaboration as well as external collaboration.
Fantastic.
Awesome.
We're so glad you came up. You can stick up for a few minutes. I'm gonna sum up real quick. First, let's thank Bill real quick for. It's just good to get a customer perspective on this. So, automatic account configuration is amazing, and it's sort of the last thing that you needed. You might, with IRM sync, automatic account configuration, you're ready to deploy OneDrive. So go deploy OneDrive. It's very straightforward. We've given you lots of tools to control it. And obviously, when you combine it with the Windows Fall Creators Update and the Files on Demand feature, it is incredible. I mean, the machine is up and running and in sync in less than 30 seconds. And that is, from a user delight perspective, it is just amazing. We have a couple more sessions about OneDrive, so this is the list, it's in there. And I'd like to open up for any questions if anyone has any questions. So thanks for coming out. Yeah, do step up to the microphone if you want. There's 4 microphones around, so if there's any questions. And we'll take a few and then we'll stick around as well after.
I had a question. How does the new files on demand work with searching on Windows 10? How fast does it have those results for search?
So the question is on the files on demand search. So it works as you'd expect. Maybe we can take it offline. I was looking for Ed. Is Ed here? I haven't seen Ed. I'm sorry? So the files on demand search guy is down at the booth. So you can, maybe we can drop by and we can carry that conversation on. Thanks.
Two issues or two questions. Hopefully it's on your roadmap. Syncing from OneDrive for Business to non-tenant devices.
Okay.
When, if ever, is that going to be fixed?
So what, maybe you could elaborate. Are you saying syncing shared content from a different tenant or?
So it sounds
similar.
like the question is of syncing of externally shared content. And so for example, this would be I, as an organization, have a lot of vendors that aren't necessarily included as part of the tenant. When
I've
can
shared
they
the
sync my
folder.
content?
They want to sync it to their desktop and have that same sync experience.
Right.
However, they get the wonderful message outside your tenant.
Right.
Can't sync.
Boy, that one is so important to us, like absolutely. Like it's so critical that we can get that audience to sync content as well. So we don't have a roadmap to share at this time, but we just know it's hugely, hugely important.
It's on our list.
I know, a bit hand-wavy, but our commitment is there. We will
Okay.
figure out a way to make this work. It has to happen.
The one other aspect I guess I was looking for is from a policy perspective, we require that the email that we send to is in fact the email that is shared when it's external. However, in a Microsoft O365 scenario where the users or the company does not use their email address as their login account, does not work. So is that on your roadmap to fix?
So that's a sharing scenario. I don't know if Eugene's here. So we have the guy that's working on all that sharing cohesion stuff. He's actually at the OneDrive booth as well. So if you come down to that booth, we'll find somebody who can answer that question. It's related to the sharing and how you can target that stuff. So we can get you the answer to that question there.
Okay. Thanks.
Thanks.
One question with the sync of all the files which are available on the desktop or in the in the documents folder. Currently, it's not recommended to sync PST files with OneDrive. So with automatic sync of files available on the desktop or documents folder, what happens with the PST files in that case? If one of those files in those folders is a local PST, does that get synchronized as well, and does it continue to work properly if it gets synchronized?
So it attempts to synchronize. It's open and changing all the time. So it's not. We don't recommend that happen. Oftentimes those are stored elsewhere in the profile, and the best thing is to get to OSTs, to get to cached exchange mode. And I have a couple experts down here who have to answer this question all the time.
And also block PSTs from an administrator. That's probably the best way to do it.
And that is something which is a long-term roadmap that at our organization we are trying to set up to use more of an online archive rather than using the PSTs.
So if folks couldn't hear that answer, the recommendation is, obviously we don't block PSTs, but you as an organization can block PSTs. So that's just for folks who didn't hear the answer.
Okay.
To be clear too, it's a setting inside of OneDrive administrator. So you as an organization you don't have to block it yourself, but you can set up inside of the admin settings, the tenant admin settings, to block specific file types like PSTs or OSTs.
Fair enough.
For those of you who couldn't hear, this is a policy that you can set as part of the SharePoint admin portal. So this is something that you can go do today.
With the auto config, if a user has a OneDrive account set up, a personal OneDrive account set up with their domain email address, does that still work? And then if an employee leaves the company, what's the best policy for making sure that all these devices that they have where OneDrive is synced, those files are removed from their devices once they leave the organization?
Yeah, so I'll take this one. So for the case where you have an account that the user signs in with a personal account to the machine, but they have a domain join credentials, silent account config is an enterprise-only policy, and so we'll just ignore the personal account, and then we'll just pick up the domain credential. For the user who has left the organization, there's a couple of options here. And so for users, and so I guess the question for you too, if you can clarify, in your organization, do you typically have a bring your own device scenario, or a these devices belong to the organization?
It's half and half.
A little half and half.
Just so they would like own their phone or a personal computer, but then they're also issued a work laptop.
Gotcha.
And they might have OneDrive on like all three.
Gotcha. And so obviously for the managed devices, like these devices are yours now, and so they leave them as they left. And so the future thinking that we need to be more thoughtful about is how can we enable scenarios like remote wipe, and especially with phone, you can do things through Intune management to remove the content. And so sync is just going to be the next evolution of things like that. So we don't have a current solution today for it, but it's hugely important, especially as bring your own device becomes more prevalent.
Great, thanks.
I think. Are you waiting, Danny? All right. So my understanding is the files on demand feature and some of this other stuff drops with the Fall Creators edition next month.
Correct.
And then you demonstrated some of the lower OS integration, like with the attrib command and stuff. Are those bits being backported into earlier versions of Windows 10, or where do I need to be to put this in place?
So the Fall Creators update is the version of Windows that has the file system, all the file system integration. So you need that version. That's the minimum version going forward that will support files on demand. So that won't be
backported.
That's
okay,
correct.
very good. Thank you.
Thank you.
Hi. We use lots of projects in Microsoft Teams. Is OneDrive also able to download those files from Microsoft Teams into OneDrive?
Yeah, so Microsoft Teams actually are just backed by groups, and then even though it is called a project, the underlying mechanism, the underlying technology is just another SharePoint site. And so just as you could share any SharePoint site by going to the SharePoint website and hitting sync, you can go to that project's website and then hit sync and sync that content.
And we're working with the team to just surface the sync button right there so that you could sync that, so you can sync that content.
Okay, is that on the roadmap then?
That's on the roadmap.
Yeah, that's right. So eventually we'd love for this experience to just be built into Teams. For now, you can just access the website and then sync that content.
Okay.
But we'll make that more seamless.
Okay, thanks.
In the past, we tried the user home folder redirection sync for OneDrive, and we ran into a lot of problems. Is what you demoed today a new process? And if so, is there updated documentation to support it? And does it require Azure AD sync or Azure AD joined users?
So unpacking the question. So no, so it's using the Windows GPA, the Windows group policies to do the document redirection. And so if a user has content, that GP will move that content and migrate it into the folder where you want it to go. So, it depends on where, if they have a bunch of data local and you're moving some of their stuff to the cloud, like a home drive or something to the cloud, that'll just blend. So, I don't know what issues you had, but it's the standard, it's the Windows known folder redirection stuff.
And when you said home drive too, that always triggers for me. So can you clarify, do you mean that you, as
documents, desktop.
Gotcha, okay, so this
No,
is content that lived on the PC. This wasn't like network content.
No, yeah, we're just talking about documents.
Okay, so that
desktop.
definitely is strange, yeah, because like Tony said, these are Windows group policies that can be used, and literally it just does the redirection or the file move, but it's physically located inside OneDrive. And so if that didn't work, you can see us offline. We'll figure out what's going on there.
And then the new provisioning, does that require an AD joined
No,
user?
so you can just do, if you're using Active Directory in your enterprise, so just domain join, just like good old-fashioned domain join, that'll work. In fact, that'll work down level as well. So that works on Windows 7, Windows 8.1, and earlier versions of Windows 10, or actually all versions of Windows 10.
Thank you.
So those two are those are separate.
Cool.
Got one in the back.
Oh.
Hi. Are there any tools available for managing OneDrive across the enterprise, different users when they leave, or attaching to those OneDrives, exporting them out, attaching them to another user?
Yes.
And is there legal hold?
Yes, all of those things do exist. There's the employee departure scenario where you can give access to the supervisor and some others. So they've done some work there. I'm not totally familiar with it. So you could come by the booth and talk to somebody about the details of that, but that absolutely exists. And all of the legal hold compliance stuff it's all part of what you get with OneDrive and SharePoint. But just come down. If you just go to the booth at the expo, all the SharePoint OneDrive folks are together. We'll find you the right person.
So to add on to that, you can actually save up to 10 years and assign it to either a manager, or you can set up an admin within your company in case that management chain gets broken or multiple people get laid off at the same time, for example. And yeah, you pick the policy. So 10 years, that's basically forever when it comes to IT. You can do it as short or as long as that you want, and then it'll automatically default over, or as an IT person, you can go and manually set if for some reason there's something weird that happened in the management chain.
Thank you.
Regarding illegal characters, so has there been any changes to that aspect?
Yeah, so basically with the support of pound and percent, and in order to get that working, there's a switch that you need, or it's actually a PowerShell script that you need to run to enable that. We didn't switch the switch for everyone because there are some people whose applications that are talking to SharePoint kind of rely on a behavior, and this might change the behavior. So we want to make sure that we didn't just flip a switch. Plus, if you had a lot of files that are sitting unsynced with those file characters and all of a sudden it just starts working, we want to make sure that you can coordinate that if there's a bunch of egress on your network. So with the pound and percent support, we're now, basically all valid Windows characters are supported. So there's basically no block characters on Windows. Nice. On Mac, you can do some things on Mac that aren't supported, and so that's kind of where people, so if you're on Windows, there's nothing blocking you.
Okay, great.
Does that help?
Okay. Yeah.
So there's information, if you just search pound per...
Yeah, I was going to say, talk to Hunter and Roosevelt. They know exactly which article.
Everyone should go flip the pound and percent switch if you haven't done it. That's definitely another thing that you should do.
Hello. First of all, thank you very much for a great session.
Oh, thank you.
I have two questions. First question is about the retention policy, and after the user's offboard, I see the configuration is for 30 days. Is this something that we can change per user and not just for the tenant level configuration?
Is it a tenant level?
I think it's tenant level.
I think it's tenant level.
Okay. Is there any workaround that we can, because in our case...
So you can change that. You can just change the policy. You don't want it...
But the thing is, we're like a multi-company in one tenant.
I see.
So we have different policies, we have different, requirements, and not everyone is, on the same page. So it's not possible today.
You know what? I would just check with the booth, run downstairs and talk to the SharePoint and OneDrive.
Yeah, there's a whole admin group that's there that it's good feedback for them, and maybe you can find out if that's something that's...
The other question is, so when we apply the group policies to the sync client and in general, how does it work with the ADFS and other controls that you put from the conditional access?
So I'll start, and then Pat can take over if I mess up. But so basically, it works with all of the anything you can do with AAD. So if you do federated auth, if you do TFA, all of those things work. Now I'm not sure how did automatic account config prompt your user on the TFA situation?
No, and so there's a difference between OneDrive group policies and things like Azure conditional access, things like that. And so group policies are all, at the end of the day, just registry keys on the local machine that the local client will start up and read, as opposed to Azure policies are actually service-based. And so those will actually block or allow access to the service. And then GPOs are purely just like, what folder do you want me to default to? They aren't those service-side settings. So we purposely keep those very separate to say this is a machine-level configuration versus a server allow or block. So they're very different just in nature, so they don't conflict.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, for sure.
A couple more, and then we need to probably clear the stage to let the next presenters go. We'll stick around or take it outside and be happy to answer and talk as long as people want.
Let's do the gentleman in the back there.
Me?
Yeah.
One is the issue with metadata being preserved when you sync from the client itself.
So any specific metadata that you're talking about?
Such as last modified,
right. So that should all work. There's some, Create date is one that has some confusion because that was a file system attribute, which is like when the file was created on the machine, not the day you had the brilliant idea to write the file. And so when that moves, that is a date that's system-based, not document-based. You know, I think that leads to some confusion. But other than that,
well, I mean, I've heard that last modified doesn't work, and our CIO came to me and said he works by the last modified, you know, to see what, to look for a file, for example.
So yeah, and you just saw when Pat did her demo of the change, although she made that change on the file, and the last modified was absolutely there. So if you know, if you run into a specific thing, it should work.
Well, I escalated this with our sales team, and they told us that it doesn't work, and so they've got some traction with the product team working on it.
Okay.
But I just wondered if you happen to know anything more about that.
It's a valid problem.
We should just take it offline. Actually, Hunter up here is a great guy to talk to, and he can help with that.
Right,
we'll get you straightened.
Great, so I think I have time for just these two, or we'll just catch them.
We'll just catch you guys down. Hey, thanks everybody for coming.
Thanks so much, everyone.
Evals.